The following is an exclusive presentation of Optimum Local. It's Optimum or it's not.
Coming up, Rockland County Legislator Ed Day joins us on this edition of Meet the Leaders. Hi there and welcome to Meet the Leaders. I'm David Smith and it's good to have our next guest with us. We're pleased to welcome Rockland County Legislator Ed Day to the program, and good to have you with us as well, of course. Ed, how are you?
Oh, great. Good to be here.
It's nice to see you. We appreciate your stopping by today. I know your schedule is very busy indeed. But you've got a lot going on, and we thought we'd serve as further inspiration and talk to folks a little bit about you and where you came from and how you came to this position.
Well, first and most importantly, I still have a job outside of government. I'm a security systems consultant in the city. I came here from law enforcement pretty much, 25 or so years in two departments. I was a detective commander in NYPD and the chief of detectives in Baltimore. I decided to run for office 6 years ago in my district in New City. It was a critical time there. I was a Civic Association president at the time.
What stimulated, what sparked your interest in public service above and beyond, obviously, security measures and so forth?
Well, like I said, I was a Civic Association president, so I was already kind of involved, you know, as a civilian, as it were. But at that particular juncture in time, there were many things going on in New City. I was not comfortable the way things were happening there in government. I had tremendous concerns about how the New City area would be developed, and I just felt it was important to get involved, and I did. And I won a victory that most people said there's no way an outsider ever wins a victory in a county government like that. So it's really a humbling thing to have people believe in you that strongly. I'm very proud to say, in a simple sense, there are things in New City that happened because of my involvement, there are things in New City that did not happen because of my involvement. The Dutch Gardens area in New City, the building is down in front. It's going to open it up for a gateway. I worked very well with Alice Gromack and the town board to get the Main Street streetscape done. The New Hempstead Road project's en route. There was an access road that was planned that would have really compromised the local community. I stopped that. So it's been on both sides of the ledger, getting things done, advocating for people, and also making sure things don't happen to the detriment of people.
Your acceptance speech that night back in 2006, I think, included a statement something along these lines. No such thing as a town or county problem. There are people issues, family issues, community issues that need the full attention of the county level of government.
True.
This seems to have been kind of a framework for why you got in and what you've been doing since that date.
It was interesting. There were times when we would go to different meetings as a Civic Association representatives, and we would hear, well, we don't do that. That's a town issue, or that's a county issue. And I'm standing there saying, wait a second, I'm a taxpayer. I'm a resident. I understand the need to delineate differences in government responsibility, but basically don't blow me off like that. So little did I know, and again, I have people call me about situations, and I will find out what the issue is. I will work with colleagues in various levels of government to get it done, whether it be the schools, town government, and I'm blessed with a good relationship with these folks because I've known them for many years. I've coached some of their children in football and baseball and basketball. So it's a good relationship. But little did I know how bad things were going to get because of the cash crunch going on in government now. Different levels of government are trying to stay within a 2% cap. They're trying to find ways to save money. And what often suffers from what I've seen in that conversation is there's an occasional losing sight of the fact that, again, like I went back, the people and the mission and making sure things are done properly. The debate about which level of government deals with something can be reduced to a simple concept. It's either your left pocket or your right pocket.
But 2% goes across the board, and
right.
that makes it very tough all the way along. And clearly you're finding it tough to deal with that. On the other hand, everybody has been spending far more than obviously the taxpayers are willing to put up with. And so it's that juggling act which government has been dealing with since there have been governments. How do you juggle that? How do you balance that?
Well, first of all, you have to be a precise steward of the people's money. That's very important, and I've endeavored to do that in office. State government, you know, the first year we had the tsunami, the economic tsunami, when the stimulus money came down, instead of taking the opportunity to get ahead of the crunch, they increased the state budget by 9%. So I find it particularly interesting to be lectured in a way by state government putting a 2% cap. At all the same time, that cap, again, keeps us at a certain level, but in order to satisfy state mandates, there's the 9 and 90, the 9 mandates that are 90% of what we pay for through county government as agents of the state. Those mandates are predicted to go up in 2012 to about $3.5 million. The tax cap only can allow us to raise about $1.5 million in property taxes. So that's a $2 million automatic hole, and the only way you make that up is to cut local things. And I have a problem with.
Yeah, you're cutting. You can't cut the mandates.
Precisely.
You've got to cut other things leading up to that.
Law enforcement, prosecutions. That makes no sense to me. My attitude is this: look, first of all, since I'm in the private sector also, my goal is to deliver a service and a product at 0% increase. That's what the goal should be, not 2, because now you enter an automatic 2% price increase every year, which I think is wrong. If you can do it for less, that should be your goal. But don't force things that we have no control over upon us. Take care of your own house, be partners in this, make sure that your house is at 2%. You know, the governor signed off on a toll increase with Governor Christie, 18% toll increase. What happened to the 2%? It's got to be across the board. If we're gonna do this, and it's not going to be a political situation, do it legitimately. Make sure we're all in the same boat and on board together.
Given that wish, that hope, that ideal situation, the reality is there it is. Mm-hmm. This is your bed. You gotta sleep in it.
Well, this is true, but the other side of the coin is that people have accused me of being very vocal, and that's okay. I say anytime I have an opportunity, we speak about it, I'm clear about it. I'm not going to buy into the politics of sounding popular at 2%. I'm going to call it what it is. I was at the RBA yesterday. I was a keynote speaker there, and I issued the same challenge. The more we expect of our various public servants, the more you get. And people, look, the average person goes to work. They have a million things going in their life. They're raising their kids. They're trying to make ends meet. You know, they expect you as an elected official to take care of business. So my thought is to make sure they're learned, they understand what's going on, that if they want something done, they know what part of government to go to. I will join them in that. I do community updates. I send emails out every couple of weeks with information that's germane to what's going on. And I try to keep the folks in my community updated without sending mailings out, which costs money. It's a promise I made in 2005 when I ran the first time, and I'm proud to say right now I have over 3,000 people on my email list. I'm on Facebook. 1,600 people are on that, and I communicate with them regularly to keep them up to speed.
Well, now you're talking technology, and technology clearly is something that has made a big difference in, and can make a bigger difference in government of whatever size, from local right on up to national.
Absolutely.
And this is something that, frankly, a lot of the areas have not taken advantage of as yet, because there is that initial outlay of funding.
Right.
But then the efficiencies and the savings that come down the line for years to come are waiting and aren't necessarily acted on.
Well, this is why some of the things I've pushed forward is an issue such as term limits. I think fresh ideas are important. Government tends to be a bit reactive. It's just, I've seen this myself. Government needs to be proactive. You need to be thinking, and I think one of the ways of doing that is to make sure you have an infusion of new people every once in a while. But every member of government can be proactive. It's a matter of making a decision, and it's kind of hard moving the big dinosaur once in a while, but we give it our best shot.
Well, when you're talking bureaucracy, it's difficult to be too proactive because you don't know whether you're stepping on somebody's toes beyond that in order to do that you're hoping to.
With 25 years in law enforcement, that was a bureaucracy.
There you go.
Paramilitary at that. Yes, and something you could still work within the framework. I mean, it's not impossible. It's a heavier lift, no question about it. One of the nice things about going to Baltimore was I was actually given a chance to really kind of recraft an entire division. And my wife said to me when I was weighing, should I go or should I not go? She says, look, you got to go. I've heard you complain when you were at NYPD about how you couldn't get things done. Well, now you answer to one person, a police commissioner. It was a lot of fun.
And they speak New York down there.
We had a language barrier, but I told the lead lieutenant of my office, look, I understand that we're going to speak a different language, and it's okay. Please tell me if I'm saying something that makes no sense. Probably one of the funniest ones when, and we didn't realize it in New York either. when a New York cop says he's in the bag, that means he's in uniform. Now, of course, there is a common connotation to being in the bag, but in Baltimore, it was like, when you would tell a cop to get in the bag, they were like, you want me to go get drunk? So these are the little translation issues that we had.
Took some working out.
Yeah, we
along
got
the way.
there, though. We got
You
there.
know, talking of technology and so forth, DNA and the ability
Yes.
to utilize that in law enforcement is something that has really made huge strides in the last 10 years,
Yes.
really. Where do we stand? I know that just last few hours, major changes have
Yes.
been made to the laws.
Yeah, and I'm very happy. You know, it's interesting. DNA was something that was, obviously, I've been out of law enforcement almost 11 years now, and we were in the process then of dealing with crime scenes, ensuring that we didn't spoil a crime scene for future DNA, when DNA was still relatively in infancy. DNA is a 21st century fingerprint. That's in the simplest terms. And we have DNA database here in New York. There was just legislation produced to expand it, and as you said, it was just approved. Now, anybody convicted of a felony or a misdemeanor and convicted, not arrested, some states just do arrested, this is a safeguard that was built in, will have to produce DNA. Now, most people will say, well, how come misdemeanors? Well, the interesting item is that right now, there was an expansion a while back in 2006, I believe, that included petty larceny, shoplifting.
Okay.
From the petty larceny, we ended up with 50 murders, 200 robberies, a number of sexual assault arrests. Think about that. Think about the pain that is prevented. Think about the pain that never occurs to a victim. And also, what's not often said is there were 27 exonerations because of DNA. So this is on both sides of the ledger. It is a tremendous tool. I mean, having seen victims close up, this was sourced in a situation where there was a terrible, terrible situation where it was a sexual assault, and there was an elderly person who was robbed. This is what started the ball rolling into expanding into all penal law crimes, misdemeanors and felonies. And again, they found that in misdemeanors, 25% of those who were engaged in that, who got arrested for that, went on to felonies. So it's just a practical issue. And again, there all this conversation about compromising the rights of people. Again, both sides of the ledger. It's not intrusive. To get a DNA sample, all you need to do is swab the inside of a cheek.
Is this strictly in New York?
No, other states have it, but in New York...
How about the exchange of this information now? We're talking about
Oh, yes, that can
convictions.
be. Yes, it can be.
And you can exchange
Yes.
between states?
Yes, anybody in law enforcement could reach another state, and if they have something, and that they have VICAP, they have a variety of different...
Even though they may not have the same law regarding misdemeanors
Precisely.
and
Yeah,
felonies?
yeah. Well,
Really?
again, it's you know, if you're in a... See, first of all, the DNA samples aren't kept because they degrade. It's put into a
on
database.
computer, sure.
So what we have, I mean, in law enforcement, we have a variety of different strategies that we can use when we have to cross states. If you have a serial killer who's traveling across the country, think about not being able to have an effective investigation cross country. We have VICAP, you know, which compares all the different the investigative indications of a crime. And you know, again, people do not respect boundaries when it comes to criminal activity, whether it be towns, villages, counties, states, countries sometimes. So yeah, the information's available. It's an investigative tool. And the interesting thing is there's over 400,000 samples that have been handled by New York State. There has not been one situation where there's been an error in handling. And that's a pretty good batting average.
That is very
right now.
key, as we all know.
That's a good
critically.
batting average. And you know, again, I think the fact that they stayed with just convictions as opposed to arrest. I think it should be arrest also, because fingerprints are arrest also. But look, in government, in order to get everybody on board with something, you take what you can get sometimes.
Other states doing it the same way with convictions, or are they with just arrests?
Most are arrest. You know, my experience, when I've read up on, most of the states are doing with arrest. And again, I have no objection to that. But again, in New York State, we got with conviction. Okay, what people don't quite understand, if you look at somebody's record, having done investigations, if you look at a conviction record of criminal trespass, disorderly conduct, often what that meant, criminal trespass was a plea down from a burglary, disorderly conduct was a plea down from a robbery. So, you know, when you see convictions for misdemeanors, an experienced investigator or law enforcement person will tell you they didn't get an arrest for criminal trespass.
Is there a suggestion for the federal officials, your representatives and senators and so forth to perhaps make this on a federal basis?
The FBI may have, I don't know what they do exactly, but the reality is, as far as being a federal basis, the law enforcement function is local. It's state, and it works down. FBI is a cross-state scenario. I mean, they do have offices in different states, but the case responsibility lies with the local police agency. Even up here, Clarkstown has ultimate responsibility for all crimes within the confines of the town. The county sheriffs, for example, will support them, the sheriff's division with BCI.
But if there were this national database, obviously it would be that much easier for everybody with the transient nature of all of us these days.
These databases do exist. It's just that there's not, it's not a federal, the federal function is a little different than the state and the local function. They're there to provide support, i.e. the support would be any information they're getting through a computer database, which I presume this would be available through that.
I'd like to talk with you as we have to take a break coming up in just a couple of moments. I want to talk to you a little bit about security. This again is Ed Day's bailiwick. This is where he cut his teeth for many, many years in security and so forth. And of course, this area has got a number of situations that lend themselves to potential problems.
Second largest mall in the country, for starters.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You got that. But talk about bridges.
Yeah.
We're talking about power plants, and all that sort of thing. And perhaps we can talk about that coming up in just a couple of moments.
That'd be great.
As a matter of fact, we are pleased to have you along with us today. It's Rockland County Legislator Ed Day visiting with us on this edition of Meet the Leaders right here on Optimum Local. I'm David Smith. We will take a break and we will come back with more coming up in just a moment. Stay with us.
Along with weight loss, it's one of the many ways to fight osteoarthritis pain. For more information on managing pain, go to fightarthritispain.org.
Hands can do incredible things. Now they can even help save a life with hands-only CPR. If you see an adult suddenly collapse, just call 911, then push hard and fast in the center of the chest until help arrives. Learn more at handsonlycpr.org.
Take my hand and start a brand new day. And together as one we'll start to see some change.
Underneath everything we are, underneath everything we do, we are all people, connected, interdependent, united. And when we reach out a hand to one, we can influence the condition of all. That's what it means to live united.
Bullying doesn't just happen in school hallways anymore. Bullies use cell phones, the internet, and even game systems to harass and embarrass their victims. That's why Cablevision's Power to Learn and Optimum have launched a campaign to delete cyberbullying. I'm Congresswoman Nita Lowey. Please join me and Cablevision to get kids to speak up and delete cyberbullying. To learn more, visit powertolearn.com.
And we're back on Meet the Leaders. Hi there, I'm David Smith, and along with Rockland County Legislator Ed Day on this edition here on Optimum Local. Ed's background is in law enforcement and has been involved in that for a number of years, although formally retired for a while. But the realities of the situation are that around all over the tri-state area, there are a number of areas that are particularly vulnerable, or at least choice spots for security problems and terrorist focus and so forth along the way, and here we have a lot of them, don't we?
Oh, absolutely, and as I mentioned earlier before we broke, Palisade Center. It's the second largest mall in the country. For a variety of reasons, safety being the primary one, it's important to make sure that location is safe. From an economic perspective, Palisades Center contributes about $40 million worth of sales tax revenue of the 175 or so million that's collected. So if you think of the economic impact, I actually had a conversation with a reporter once when I was sounding a clarion about the funding that seemed to be going more to the city, hardening targets closer to that area, which of course could cause a situation where terrorists look elsewhere. And I said to the reporter, I said, if you felt the Palisades Center wasn't safe, would you shop there? And she said, no. It's exactly my point. It's not just a reality, it's a perception. So it's not just terrorism, it's also crime. You know, I know Clarkstown especially, Clarkstown has a number of times interfaced with the Palisades Center to speak of security. We've touched upon it in the county level occasionally.
But on a day-to-day basis, how many people really think of that when they're going, I'm going to go run down to the center
right.
and buy something,
And
whatever it is.
that's
Do you think of that?
Right. That's what's very special about this community. I've worked in neighborhoods where people thought quite often of their safety when they went to a local bodega. We're blessed here in Rockland with some of the safest communities around, and we go to stores and we don't think of it. That's all the more reason why it's incumbent upon the people you elect to represent you to make sure they think about it, because the freedom you have, both from a reality perspective and from the just the way you feel, just the sense of it, is important. So we have to stay on our game when it comes to this.
that end, how comfortable are you with the Indian Point situation?
The Indian Point situation, I was less comfortable some years back because I felt I wasn't getting any kind of clarity when we questioned them, and that's the one way, if you ever want to get a cop to really start interrogating you, start throwing things at them that is not adding up. The reality is this, from a safety perspective, I have serious questions about whether or not the plant is efficient from a safety perspective. I know some folks who work on the security end over there. I can tell you they have an effective security component. My concern is more of the operations of the plant, leaks, things of that nature. I think we should be looking at, and there's a debate about how it got there, who was there first. The reality is we have a nuclear facility that's very close to residents, communities. It's not a good placement for a nuclear facility. What we should be looking at, frankly, is trying to get our sources of power elsewhere. I mean, we have a location right in Stony Point right now. There should be an aggressive effort to try to supplant the need for the nuclear facilities power and try to get it elsewhere, not to mention the fact we get ratables in different parts of the county. So, but see, unfortunately, we have often is that I can't even think of the last time a power plant was built. So there has to be an across-the-board effort. It's almost like the national debate about drill and not drill. We have to have a cohesive, broad approach towards making sure that we have enough power here, and with the goal of not having a nuclear facility within our midst.
Well, it's the old NIMBY thing, not in my backyard. I don't want a power plant anywhere close to me, whatever it is, whether it's atomic or any other sort of power plant. Nobody really wants it, and especially in this area where you've got such a concentration.
Well, this is why the
population.
facilities, from what I've been hearing from folks at Stony Point, is an ideal situation because it is an area that has a plant, had a plant. It would provide a ratable. It would give them back some of the tax base they lost. So that's a unique situation. Again, it would seem to me. I know I've heard Jeff Finn, the supervisor, speak of this, and even Supervisor Sherwood before him, looking to be aggressive in trying to get that plant online. So these are the things that are being done ostensibly with the support of the people in the community because these are town supervisors who are moving on them. So again, the NIMBY issue is not really apply there.
Not on this one.
But with the Indian Point, I think by any measure to have a nuclear facility, with so close to people, no matter what the safeguards are, it's just not the desired thing you want to have. So, but you have to have a chart course.
Let's look at our four-footed citizens here. Animal control.
Yes.
Something in Rockland that you feel very strongly about and needs some serious upgrades, you're saying.
Yeah, well, we're measured in life by how we treat all, and that includes our animals. The reality is that it's an issue that has to be addressed. We have the county has a shelter here in Rockland County. It was something that was pretty much donated county property, but it's fallen to disrepair. The county also supplies some funding every year. It's ranged between $150,000 And the towns also, by law, by the way, are supposed to supply funding for the dog control function, not animal control function. What's happened, and we touched on it earlier, is the pressure being brought to bear on budgets. There seems to be, not intentional, but there has been a bit of a walking away from the responsibilities that are delineated by law under the General Municipal Law, GML. And also, in the county's perspective, that we have a facility, we're a landlord. We have a responsibility to make sure the building is up to snuff. We don't have a situation where it's a tragedy, at the very least. So what occurred here is that myself, and I was joined by 3 legislators, Wolf, Earl, and Hood, we're starting the ball rolling here because it's been a lot of conversation and no action. Jerry Bierger, a previous legislator, called the county a slumlord. It's not a good thing to be called. I mean, he wasn't inaccurate. So we just got a report back from our engineer, our lead engineer in the county, that delineated a path to getting the facility up to snuff.
What's it going to take? How much money is it going to take?
$650,000.
$650,000.
Right.
What will that accomplish?
That'll get the building up to where it should be.
What will it accommodate?
Well, the numbers, that's something we have to work with the people there.
And this is dogs and cats?
It's all chickens.
All animals, whatever it is.
Yeah. See, they've
and
taken
wild animals as well as
domestic
animals.
They've taken the mission on to expand past dogs. And again, what's happening, these expansions are taking place without all the necessary footings in place along with it. There are some temporary facilities that have been put up there by High Tour with the best of intentions, but these are things that normally you and I would do. We have to get permits for, and we've had discussions with the High Tour board as to how to do. If there's going to be a repair necessary, we want to document it, have it done by the county people. If you have a volunteer who can do this kind of work, make sure there's a work order. This is just to structure the effort. We have to identify what they need, and this is an ongoing issue now. We're going to have them come in. We're going to speak to them about where they see the minimum function should be, what would they desire to do, what's the mix going to be of town's contributions, county donations, because again, we can't lose sight of one thing also. The fact is, this is taxpayer funded.
Well, I was going to say, and county budget and town budgets and so forth.
Right.
At 2%, those budgets are currently being stretched anyway, much less with I can't believe pet groups haven't been up in arms.
Oh, they are. Oh, no, they are. They're understandably upset.
It's gonna be big.
Yeah, and good. I mean, that's the American way. Raise your voice, and if you see something wrong, and try to take care of. And this is the reason why myself and others have taken this step. As legislators, we don't get involved in operations of government. That's just not our function. But we felt that if we can bring everybody to the table, if we can chart, again, this is, I guess, the organizational aspect of me. We can chart out a path that makes sense, and we can identify the different pieces that should be focused on getting the animal care and control function up to snuff and up to speed in the county. Once that's identified, people, including the people who are this is very near and dear to, will say, if they say that makes a lot of sense, now if one piece of that puzzle doesn't want to help, well, now the focus goes upon that piece.
Who is the naysayer?
Well, one naysayer we see right now is, unfortunately, is Spring Valley. They're asserting that they can't afford an animal control officer. They're in the precipice of getting fines from the state over this.
Because it's mandated that they do have that.
Under the GML, every town and Spring Valley as a village is mandated to have a function. So what's happening is they're asserting there are no animals up there, which is just disingenuous. And I have a wonderful relationship with the mayor there, but it's not true. Cops are they pick up the dogs, they bring them to High Tour. High Tour, out of the goodness of their heart, without any kind of contract with Spring Valley, takes them anyway. That's not right.
This is not going to be an easy road to hoe.
No,
There's
it
no
won't
question
be.
about it. And a lot of people talking about you for other political positions.
Okay.
Yes, no?
Oh, I've heard, people have asked me to consider other things, yes.
And are you?
Absolutely. I mean, I look at it this way. I say this with tongue in cheek. I have a limited shelf life. I'm 60 years of age. I got into politics because I wanted to make a difference.
Well, you're wearing it pretty well, though, I must say, for those 60 years.
Thank you, David.
We want to thank you very much for stopping by today.
Thank you. It's been a
Interesting
pleasure being here.
To watch and watch your dust, as it were. Rockland County Legislator Ed Day visiting with us today on this edition of Meet the Leaders. Again, our thanks.
Thank you
Best
very
going
much.
forward. Our thanks to you for joining us as well. I'm David Smith. We'll look for you next time right here on Optimum Local.